Alright, chapter 13, The Magic of Rapport. The friend who understands you creates you, remain rolling. Think of a time when you and another person were completely in sync. It could be a friend or a lover, a family member, or someone you just met by chance. Go back to the time and try to think about what it was about this person that made you feel so attuned to him or her. Chances are that you thought alike, felt the same way about certain movie, book, or experience. You might have noticed it, but may have had similar patterns of breathing and speeching. Maybe you had a similar background or similar beliefs. Whatever you came up with, a reflection of the same basic element, rapport. Rapport is the ability to enter someone else's world to make them feel that you understand him, that you have a strong common bond. It's the ability to go fully from your map of the world to his map of the world. Its essence, successful communication. Rapport is the ultimate tool for producing results over the other people. Remember, we learned in Chapter 5, the 7 lines of success. These people are the most important resource. Well, rapport is the way to tap the resource. No matter what you want in life, it can develop a rapport with the right of the people, be able to fill their needs, but they will be unable to fill yours. The ability to establish rapport is one of the most important skills a person can have to be a good performer, a good salesman, good parent, good friend, good persuader, good politician. You really need is rapport, the ability to form a powerful common human bond and a relationship with a responsiveness. A lot of people make a life very complicated and difficult. It doesn't have to be. All the skills you learn in this book are really the way to achieve the great rapport with people and rapport with others that makes almost any task simpler, easier, and more enjoyable. No matter what you do, see, create, share, experience in life, whether they achieve the similar spiritual realization or earning $1 million, there's someone else who can help you accomplish the goal more quickly and easily. Someone else knows how to get the quicker and more effectively and can do something to help you get there where you want to get more rapidly. The way to enlist to that person is to achieve rapport, the magic bond that unites people that makes feel like partners. Want to know the worst glitch ever coined? Opposites attract. Like most people that are false, it has an element of truth where people that have certain common element of difference add certain excitement to things. But overall, who's attractive to you? Why don't you want to spend whom do you want to spend time with? Are you looking for someone that disagrees with you on everything and that differs interest, like sleep when you want to play and likes to play when you want to sleep? Of course not. You want to be with the people who are like you, yet unique. When people are like each other, they tend to like each other. Do people from clubs and people who are different from them, don't they get together at a fellow war veteran, stamp collectors, baseball card collectors, because they have something in common, creates rapport. Even you ever go into convention, there's an instant bond created among people that never seen each other before. One of the samples of the comedy is fast talking and back slapping exert, trying to enter act with quite self-efficiency, introvert. How do they get along? Terribly. They just don't have enough to really like each other that very much. Whom do most Americans tend to feel better about, with the English or Iranians? Or easy answer, what do you have that most common with them? With same answer, think of the Middle East. What do you think the problem there are? The Jews and the Arabs, like in their religious beliefs, do they have the same sort of justice system? They have the same language? You could go on and on. The problem results that they were the ways that you're different. In fact, when you say people have differences, what means the ways where they are not alike, causing all sorts of problems. What about blacks and whites in the United States? Where did the problems begin? They begin with the people that focus where they're different. The difference in the culture, color, custom, turmoil can result in a massive amount of difference. Harmony tends to result from similarity. It has been true throughout history. It's truly global scale and true on a personal scale. Take any of the relationships between two people and you find with the first you create with a bond where it's something with a head in common. They may be different ways to go of doing the same thing, but with the commonalities of the first brought them together. Think about someone who's you really like, knows him, what makes him appealing. It isn't always which he likes, or at least her like the way that you would like to be. Whom don't think, wow, the guy thinks opposite from me every single issue. What a great guy. What you think, what a smart guy. He's able to see the world much more that way I do, even add to my perspective. Think of someone you can't stand if he has something, if he's someone just like you, don't you think, God, what a rotten person. He thinks just the way I do. Does this mean there's no way out of this vicious circle of difference, kind of creating more differences? Of course not, because in every case there's a difference, there's sameness too. Black and whites and Americans have a lot of difference, sure, if you want to view things that way, but if they have much more in common, do they? We're all men and brothers and sisters, and with similar fear aspirations. They go to discord to harmony, to go from concentrating on differences to concentrating on similarity. The first step of the real communication is to learn to translate from your map of the world to someone else's, and what all allows us to do that, rapport skills. If you would win a man to your cause, first convince him that you are his sincere friend. Abraham Lincoln. How do you create rapport? Where do you, we do it by creating and discovering things with common linguistic programming language. We call this process mirroring or matching. There are many ways to create a commonality with another person. Thus, stay with a rapport. You can mirror interests, have a similar experience with sale, trust, favorite activity. You can have, or you can minor association that has similar friends and acquaintances. Or you can mirror beliefs. Their common experiences is a way to create friendship or relationship, but all these experiences have one thing in common. They are communicated through words. The most common ways to match other things through the exchange of information about each other through words. However, studies have shown only 7% of what's communicated between people is transmitted through words themselves. 38% comes from tone of voice. I know when I was a kid, my mother raised her voice and said Anthony in a certain tone that meant much more than my name alone. 55% of communication, the largest part of the result of physiology, body language, facial expression, gestures, quality, type of movements of the person delivering the communication provides us with much more about what they're saying than the words them by themselves. This explains whether the guy Don Rickles can get caught up and attack you and say terrible things to make you laugh, or how an Eddie Murphy can use four-letter word and make you laugh, because it's not the words, it's the delivery, it's the tonality, the physiology makes you laugh. So if we're just trying to create rapport merely by content of our conversation, we're missing out on the largest way that could be communicating commonality to the brain of another person. One of the best ways to achieve rapport is through the marrying and creating the common physiology with that person. One of the greatest hypnotherapists, Dr. Milton Erickson, did learn to mirror breathing patterns, posture, tonality, gestures of the other people, and by doing that, he achieved total binding rapture in a matter of moments. People who do not know, he suddenly trusted him without question. So if you can deliver rapport with just words, think of the incredible power of the rapport can develop with words and physiology linked together. Well, the words working with a person's conscious mind, with the biology is working on the unconscious. That's where the brain is thinking. The person like me, they must be okay. Once happened with a tremendous attraction, tremendous bond, because of the unconsciousness, even more of the effective, you're not aware of anything but the bond that has been formed. So, do you mirror any person's physiology with the kind of physical traits that you can mirror? Start with a voice, mirror his tonality, phrasing, his pitch, how fast he talks, what sort of pauses he makes, his volume, mirror favorite words or phrases. How about posture and breathing patterns or eye contact, body language, facial expressions, hand gestures, or other distinctive movements? Any aspect of physiology, from the way the person plants his feet to the way he tilts his head, is something you can mirror. No, this may sound absurd at first. What if you could mirror everything about another person? You know what happens? People feel as though they found a soulmate, someone who totally understands, can read with the deepest thoughts just like them, but you don't have to mirror everything about the person to create a state of rapport. If you're just studying with a tone of voice, similar facial expressions, you can learn to build incredible rapport with anyone. For the next several days, you should practice mirroring people that you are with, mirroring with the gestures, postures, mirror with the rate of the location of the breathing, mirroring tone, tempo, volume of voice. They feel closer to you, do they feel closer to them? Remember the mirroring experiment chapter, physiology. A person mirroring someone's physiology, he's able to experience not only the same state, but also the same sort of an internal experience, even the same stuff. Now, what if you could do that in a daily life? What if it became your successful mirror that you could know that someone was thinking of the sort of rapture would you have then? What could you do with it if it's an awesome thing to contemplate with the professional communicators do it all the time, mirroring your skill like any other. It takes practice to develop, however, you can use it right now and get results. When you break it down, there are two keys to mirroring. Key of observation, personal flexibility. Experimental, do one with your someone else. Pick one person to be with the mirror and the other to be the leader. Have the leader run through the physical change of the possible in a minute and two. Change facial expression, posture, breathing, and change big things like this where they would hold your arm. Change small ones like tension in your neck. This is a great exercise for them to do with children. They love it when they're through. Compare notes, so how well did the mirroring of the other person in the change position? Probably fine with a missed at least as many as you hit. Anyone can become an expert with a mirror, but you need not to begin with recognition that people use their bodies in hundreds of ways. More aware that you are the position, the more successful you'll be, even though there are unlimited possible people sitting position for usually make a limited number of movements after the sum of the practice. You won't even think consciously about it. Doing it, you'll automatically mirror the posture and physiologies of the people around you. And then show the possible components of the voice to mirror the volume, loud and soft, loudness of the voice, tempo, the pace of the rhythm, speech pattern, tone high and low, pitch and frequency of the voice, and timbre, the individual characteristic quality of the voice. There's infinite subtles of the effective mirroring, but with the foundation, something touch of the chapter, illicit strategy, three basic representation system. Remembering everyone has three representational systems, but most of us have a strong preference for representational system that we lean on time and time again with a primary visual, auditory, kinesthetic. Once you figured a person's primary representational system, you radically simplify with the job developing rapport with them. To effectively communicate, we must realize that we are all different in a way of perceiving the world and using understand as a guide to our communication with others. Anthony Robbins. If behavior and physiology were made with a random set of the factors, you would have the painstakingly pick up every clue and cue and then put them all together. But representation systems are like keys to a secret code. Knowing one fact gives you the clue to a dozen more. Solve with chapter 8 is a whole constellation of behaviors that go along with it being primary visual with their verbal cues, phrasing like how it looks to me, or just can't picture myself doing that. Speech is usually fact, breathing in the highest in the eye in the chest, vocal tone, pitch, nasal, and often strained. They're usually muscle tension, particularly with the shoulder and abdomen. Visually orientated people tend to point a lot. They often have hunched shoulders and extended neck. Auditory people use phrases like, it sounds good to me, it doesn't ring a bell. Speech is modulated to tempo, balance, and the voice tends to create with a resonant tonality. Breathing tends to even the deeper, coming from the diaphragm with a whole chest, tends with the balanced muscle of attention. People find with their hands, arms usually indicate the auditory accessing with a tendency of the shoulders to slouch so much that the head of the tilt slightly to one side. How people perceive communication generic. I understand you. I see the point. I hear you are saying. I feel that I am with you or saying. I want to communicate to you. Visual, I want you to take a look at this. Auditory, I want you to make it out loud and clear. Kinesthetic, I want you to go grasp on this. Do you understand? Generic, do you understand what I'm trying to communicate? Visual, I am painting a clear picture. Or do you do what I am saying sound right now? Sound right to you? Kinesthetic, are you able to get a handle on this? Generic, I know that to be true. Visual, I know beyond a shadow of doubt that is true. Auditory, the information accurate word to word. Kinesthetic, information solid as a rock. Generic, I'm not sure about that. Visual, I'm pretty hazy to me. That doesn't really ring a bell. Auditory, kinesthetic, I'm not sure following you. Generic, I don't like what you are doing. Visual, I take a dim view of your perspective. Auditory, there's no resonant with me at all. Kinesthetic, what boils down to it is that you're doing doesn't feel right to me. Life is good. Generic, visual, I'm a mental image of the life that's sparkling crystal clear. Auditory, life is perfect harmony. Kinesthetic, life feels wonderful. Kinesthetic people use phrases like, it doesn't feel right, but I'm just not touching, I'm not in touch with things. Speak with a slow tempo, many times with a long pause between words. I have a low, deep tonality. A lot of body movement tends to indicate the tactile external kinesthetic acts. If the muscle relaxation indicates internal visceral kinesthetic assessing. A position characterized by upturned palms with the arms bent, relaxed, and kinesthetic posture tends to be solid with the head sitting squarely on the shoulders. There are other cues that things that vary somewhat from person to person, so carefully observation always needed that each person is unique, but when you know some of the main representational system, you have a huge step toward learning how to enter this world. All you have to do is match it. Consider someone who is primarily auditory state, whether you're trying to persuade him to do something by asking him in the picture and how it will look. You talk very, very rapidly, you probably won't get through. He needs to hear that what you have to say, but he needs to listen to the proposal notes if the click stand for himself. In fact, he may not even hear you simply because of the tone of the voice may turn off at the very start, with another person be primary visual state with you approach with a kinesthetic talking with slowly about how you feel about something. You will probably become irritated and slow with the pace of the ask you to please get to the point. To illustrate these differences, I like to give the example of the residential neighborhood I know. Our house is located on a quiet, peaceful street. Almost any time of the day you can walk out and hear the birds singing within the storybook and interior that speaks with the so eloquent. It's hard not to ask yourself how anyone could pass but by. Around twilight, you wander out in the garden and just listen to the birds of breeze rustling through the branches with the sound of the wind chimes on the front porch. Another house, amazingly picturesque. I just got excited looking at it. The visual stunning from the long white porch out front with a beautiful detailed wainscoting on the peach-colored wall with the windows everywhere with the bright, beautiful light with the time of the day. There's so much to look at for the winding stair with the elegant carved oak doors. You could spend the day just exploring every nook and cranny, finding out the new things there you see. Third house is harder to describe. If you go to the experience it yourself, you'll feel that it is construction solid, reassuring that rooms have distinction, warmth, and totally undefinable with the touch is something very fundamental in you. Almost nurturing. You feel like sitting in the corner, soaking up whatever vapors are making them feel serene. All three cases I'm talking about with the same house. The first from auditory, the second from the visual, the third kinesthetic point of view. If you're showing the house with a group of people to fully bring it alive with the richness, and you would tap it in all three modes. Each person's main representational system determined with the three distinction sounds most enticing, but remember people all use all three. The most elegant way to communicate is tap all the while focusing on the system other person's users most. Being to make a visual, auditory, kinesthetic words. For the next several days, listen to people who are talking with you, determining what kind of the words they use most, then speak within them using the same kind of words. What happens is to speak with a different representational system. What happens this time? Let's give me an example of just how the potential effect of the mirror can be. I was in New York recently, wanted to relax, so I went to Central Park. I walked over and sat on a bench, watched what was going on. Pretty soon I noticed the guy sitting across from me. I just began to mirror him. Once you get the habit of the tough stop and to mirror him exactly, sitting in the way he breathes, the way he is, doing the same thing with his feet. They started throwing breadcrumbs over the birds. I started throwing breadcrumbs to the birds. He'd swing his head a little bit, started swinging his head a little. I started swinging. Then he glances and I glance up. He looks at me and I look at him. Then it's predicated words, visual, see, look, visual, appear with the tone of the dawn, feel, envision, eliminate, twinkle, clear, foggy, focus, has, hazy, sparkling, crystal, sheer, flash, imagine, auditory, hear, listen, sound, make music, harmonize, tune in, out, be all ears, ring a bell, silence, be heard, resonant, deaf, mellowfullish, dissonance, attune, overtunes, unhearing, question, kinesthetic, feel, touch, grasp, get hold of, slip through, catch on, tap into, make contact, throw out, turn around, unfeeling, concentrate, scrape, unbudging, getting a handle, solid and suffer, unspecified sense experience, think, and with the understand of the link, learn, process, decide, motivate, consider, retain, with the perceive, insensitive, distinct, conceive, be conscious, and know. Before too long, he gets up and walks over to me. No surprise, I'm totally attracted to him, but he thinks I'm just like him. We're starting, and I'm mirroring the tone of voice. His paraphysiology, exactly. A few months later, he's obviously very intelligent one. What does he believe? He believes because he feels I'm just like me. Before I'm too long, it's telling him that he feels knows me better than people he has known with 25 years. And not long after that, he offers me a job. I know that some people that I talk to about mirroring getting all uptight and stuff with an unnatural, manipulative, but with the idea with the unnatural, absurd, anybody you rapport with someone natural that you begin with mirroring him in physiology, tonality, and so on. Whenever I reteach in seminars, usually someone represents upsetting and about mirroring. I'm simply pointing without that he will look over the person next to him and that he will notice they are sitting just the same way, but they both have with the legs crossed, with the heads with the tilts the same angle and set forth. Invariable to mirror each for the other because they have developed rapport with over the course of several days. I think one how over the field of the other, he will say great or close. Then I have the other person change his physiology, sit completely different in posture when. And the first person, how he feels with the other person now, with the answer received, not a close, distant, and I'm not sure anymore. So mirroring is a natural part of the rapport. You already do with the unconsciously in the chapter. We're learning to do with the recipe of the rapport, so with the creative of the result. Anytime we wish, anyone, even a stranger, with the mirroring being the manipulative, tell me the require with the conscious effort, just to speak with the normal pace, with the tone, with the truly to find out how another person communicates best to enter the world. And remember, while you're mirroring another person, you truly experience how you feel with the intent with the manipulate someone else. One being with the mirror, with you can fact with it and feel more like him. So question becomes: are you willing to manipulate that servant yourself? You're not going to give your identity you're not going to give up your identity when you mirror another person. You're not exclusively visual, auditory, kinesthetic person. We should strive to be flexible. Mirroring simply creates the commonality, physiology, the underscore of our shared humanity. When a mirroring gets to the benefits of another person's feelings, experience, and thoughts, the powerful, beautiful, and empowering lessons experienced with how to share with the world with other human beings. Massive cultural success result of the rapport with the masses. Most effective leaders are strong with the 3D representational systems. We tend to trust people who appeal to all three levels would give them a sense of congruency. All parts of their personal convey the same thing. Think of the past presidential election. You think Ronald Reagan of his age, attractive man visually, does he have an attractive tone, voice, manner, and speaking? Can he move you emotionally, feelings, and patriotism, and possibility? Most of them, even with those who disagree with his policies, would give you a resounding yes to all three questions. No wonder why they call him the great communicator. Now they think of the Walt Mondale. Is he an attractive man visually? When I ask the question, I'm lucky if I got 20% yes response. Do I have attractive tone of voice, manner of speaking? I get even a smaller number of the people who believe he does. Even those who agree with the Mondale says seldom answer yes to this question. Can he move with the emotional, with the feeling, with the patriotism and possibility? I usually get a laugh at this point, and then one of the biggest feelings. So was any surprise that Ronald Reagan won the landslide? Think of what happened to Gary Hart, fairly with attractive level 3 level of mundane, more money, but had been in the White House. Seemed the logical choice if the Hart was running, but only for a short time. When it happened for one thing, that he was incongruent. What people to ask him why he hadn't changed the name, he said it was important, but his body language, tone, voice, and otherwise, he could stood in front of the press and said, "Yes, I changed my name, but I didn't." Did so that they wouldn't judge me by my name rather than the quality of the job that I do. Instead of he was wishy-washy. Then they had to be pressed him to discover the new ideas. When he did, many people felt that there was no substance with them. They were just fluff. What about Geraldine Ferraro? Do you think he should be attractive? Geraldine Ferraro. Do you think she's an attractive woman? Visually, 60% of the people I'm interviewed thought so. You feel she with an attractive tone of voice? Ferraro loses big. Between 80 and 90% of the audience interviewed said that her voice was not only unattractive but irritating. The only exemption were the people in New York City. And about only 10% said she could move them emotionally. Can you imagine how difficult it would be for you to be popular, even if you have the greatest idea of the world? If people are irritated every time you open your mouth, being a woman and being in the same ticket with the Mondale didn't help. Mrs. Ferraro, in some people's eyes, yet they may not have been with the major reasons she didn't get support. The tone of voice and the inability to move with the people emotionally. Finally, with an incongruent cost, many issues arose where it appeared with the delivered mixed messages about abortion, nuclear first strike, and her husband financing a more personal communication skill with the Democratic candidates, along with made defeat most inevitable. Think now of the major cultural success like Bruce Springsteen with the concerts or Paggy outfits, everything into the eyes and ear with the visual track with the talk of the audience and voice, deep with the feeling, develops tremendous rapport with he has appeared with the totally congruent. Think of the president for modern history. From modern history stands out in your mind being the powerful, charismatic, and able to do the difference. Do you think of the John F. Kennedy? 95% of the people I polled do. Well, there are many reasons, but let's check with you. Do you feel that Kennedy was an attractive man visually? You bet. I really find someone who didn't think he was. What about the auditory point of view? 90% of the people I polled agreed he was attractive in this way too. Could he have moved the emotional statement like, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country? He was a master of using communication to affect others. Was he congruent? Khrushchev must have thought so. Cuban Missile Crisis was testing the congruence between Kennedy and Khrushchev. They were both staring at each other in the eye to eye, and one writer put in, Khrushchev blinked. Study successful people shown over and over again that they have the great talent of creating rapport with those who have the flexible travel the 3 miles with the effect of a large number of the people whether a teacher, businessman, or a world leader. But you don't need a sort of signal natural gift to do it. You can see whether you hear with the feel, whether you can create rapture with anyone just for doing what he does, whether you're looking at the few things mirror the untruthfully and naturally as possible. You're mirroring a person with the asthmatic and it is terrible to twitch instead of achieving rapport. You lead to him thinking of the mocking him and the practice consistently into the world wherever you're speaking with an personal mode. It will soon become second nature. You will be automatically without any conscious thought. You begin with the mirror. They effectively learn with the process of the moral. Just allow for the achieve the rapport, understand the other person, cover the what, know for the pricing, leading, and you'll be able to go get them to follow them in a master matter. It doesn't matter how different they are. It doesn't matter how you met. It can establish enough rapport with someone being before long, too long, changing with the behavior at the beginning to match yours. Let me give you an example. A few years ago, my nutrition business developed a relationship with a very powerful doctor with the Beverly Hills. Go off the wrong foot with the one to mediate with a decision on proposal. But I was out of town. It was only one we could have to make the decision. He didn't live having to wait for something as young as I was, 21 at the time, and he was pretty agnostic state where I finally met him. I found him sitting in the office with a very rigid chair position, his muscles tense, and he sat on the chair opposite with exactly the same posture, began with a mirror with the rhythm of the breathing. He spoke rapidly, so I spoke rapidly. He found unusual the gesture and waving his right arm in a circle. I picked up the same thing. Despite the bad circumstance with our meeting, we began to get along. Why? Because of the matching him and I established the rapport. Before too long, I began to see if I could lead him. First, I slowed him down with the pace of my speech and showed him down, and then he slowed down too. Then I sat back down in my chair and we did the same thing. At the beginning of the match from the hearing, but our rapport developed, and I was able to leading him in the match of the mirror me. Then he asked me out to lunch, and we ended up having a really friendly meal together as if we were best buddies. Now, this was a guy who hated my guts when I walked into the door, so I did not need to have an ideal circumstance for the mirror well. Just needed the skill to adapt the behavior to someone else. When I was done with the man with the pacing and leading and the practice of the grateful mirroring, moving in a way of the person, move with the change of the gesture, change of the as he changed gestures. Once attaining the great skill of the mirroring someone else, you can change your physiology, behavior almost instinctively to as the other person change. The rapport is not static. It's not something that remains stable once achieved. It's a dynamic, fluid, flexible process, just as able for the establishing truly resonant, lasting relationship with the inevitability to change with the justice that someone else is going through. Key of the pacing ability with the elegantly, accurately change with gears what somebody else does. Leading foul directly with the pacing, establishing rapport with the people that you've created, linking with the almost foul with the leading cove with the natural is paid for the reach for the point as you start with the initiate change rather than mirroring other person a point at which you've developed so much rapport with the chain with the other person will unconsciously follow you. You probably experienced being with the friends late with the night when you're not tired at all, but you're such deep in the rapport that when you're yawning, yeah, you yawn too. Best salesmen do exactly the same thing in another person's world to achieve the rapport, then you have the rapport to lead. Obvious question comes up when talking about rapport this way. What if someone's mad at you? Maybe the madness of his anger. There's certainly one choice. However, in the next pattern chapter, we'll go in and talk about how to break someone's pattern, whether it be one anger, frustration, how to do it quickly. Might be the best break someone's pattern rather than mirror that anger. Sometimes with mirroring someone's anger, you can enter this world so strongly that when you begin to relax, you begin to relax also. Remember, the rapport doesn't just mean you're smiling. Rapport means respond with and straight. People, for instance, sometimes find mirroring anger right back absolutely essential. Occasionally, you might need to adjust need to be intense in your communication to a person since he challenged you. One of many ways to respectfully develop and part of the culture. Here's another experiment. Engage someone in the conversation, mirror him in posture, voice, and breathing. After a while, gradually change your posture with the tone of voice to with the other person followed with a few minutes. If it does not, simply will go back and pace again. The different lead make that change less radical. If when you attempt to lead someone he does not follow, then simply move means you don't have enough rapture yet. Develop a more rapport. Try again. I bid him look at the lives of the men, though in the mirror from others, to take the example of themselves with their ends. With the key of establishing rapport flexibility, remember the biggest barrier of the rapport is thinking of the other people that have the same map you do because you see the world one way they do. Excellent communicators really make the mistake. They know how to change the language of their tone and with the breathing pattern, with the gesture until they discover an approach successful achieving an outcome. If you fail to communicate with someone attempting to assume that the hopeless fool will refuse to listen to reason, but virtually guarantee that they never get through, it's better to change the world behaviors until they match his model of the world. Our essential tenet of the neuro-linguistic program is the means of the communication response with the listener. The response of the communication rests upon you. If you try to persuade someone to do one thing, he does the other. The fault was in your communication. You don't find it a way to get your message through. This is absolutely crucial for anything you do. Let's look at the teaching greatest strategy for the education. Most teachers know their subjects and they don't know their students, and they don't know their students process information. They don't know the students the representational system. And they don't know the student's mind work. Best teachers instinctively know how to place and lead. They are able to establish rapport where the message gets through, but there's no reason with all the teachers can lead the same thing, learning to pay for the students and learning to present information in the form of the student effectively process revolutionize the education. Somebody I think that since they know the subject with any failure with the communication rather the students who can learn respond with the non-contact with the meaning of the communication. You know everything in the world about Holy Roman Empire, but if you establish rapport with you can translate the information from your map or someone else. Your knowledge is meaningless. However, the best teachers are women that establish rapport with the story about the classroom and with all the keys of the prank arranged to drop the books and exactly at 9 a.m. so throw the teacher off without missing a beat. She put down her chalk and picked up a book and dropped it to say, "Sorry, I'm late," and she said after she had the kids eaten up out of her hand. The founder of neuro-linguistics gave a fascinating example of just how the education should work with a young and experienced student with a primary representational system that can set at first the terrible problems with learning to read electrical schematics. He found the subject difficult and boring because he was having trouble making the same concept that were presented visually. The one day, he began to imagine that it would feel like being an electron flowing through the circuit that he saw with the diagram in front of him. They imagined various reactions. The change of the behavior come in contact with the component circuit similar with the character of the schematic. Also, the immediately diagram began to make more sense to him, and he even began to enjoy that each schematic presented to him in a new odyssey. It was enjoyable that he ended up becoming an engineer in society because he was able to learn through the favored representational system. Nearly all the kids who wash out our educational systems are capable of learning. We just never learned how to reach them, and never established rapport with them, and they never would match learning strategies. I've been emphasizing teaching because at the end of it is something we all do, whether at home and with our kids, at work, or work with employees or peers. What works in the classroom works in the boardroom or living room as well. Final wonder thing about magic rapport with the most successful skill of the world. You don't need textbooks. You don't need a course. You don't need travel to study the feet at the masters. You don't need to earn a degree. The only tools you need are your eyes, your ears, and your senses, touch and taste and smell. If you begin to cultivating rapport right now, we're always communicating, interacting. Rapport is simply doing the most effective of the ways possible. You can't stand raptor whether you're waiting with a plane, mirroring the people in line with you. You can report with a grocery store. You can use at your job or at your home. When you go to job interview, the matchmaker interview, he'll likely immediate you He'll like you immediately with the rapport in your business, create with a connection with the clients. If you want to become a master of communication, all you need to learn is how to enter the person and people of the world. You already have everything you need to do now. There's another way to establish rapport and see distinctions that help determine with the choice and people that make choices people make. They're called Distinctions of Excellence Meta Programs, Chapter 14.